Finding great candidates to hire can be like, well, trying to find a needle in a haystack. Sure, you can post your job to some job board, but then all you can do is hope the right person comes along. Which is why you should try ZipRecruiter for free at ziprecruiter.com/zip. ZipRecruiter doesn't depend on candidates finding you. It finds them for you. Its powerful technology identifies people with the right experience and actively invites them to apply to your job. You get qualified candidates fast. So while other companies might deliver a lot of hay, ZipRecruiter finds you what you're looking for. The needle in the haystack.
See why 4 out of 5 employers who post a job on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire. And right now, you can try ZipRecruiter for free. That's right, free at ziprecruiter.com/zip. That's ziprecruiter.com/zip. ziprecruiter.com/zip.
How would you like a 15% discount to my daily email, the stack of stuff, the show notes, discounts to the conference, all of that? All you need to do is text the word show to 33777. You'll get the annual subscription with a 15% discount to my daily email. You'll get the stack of stuff, the links to the show notes, discounts to the conference, and so much more. All you have to do is text the word show, SHOW, to 33777. Text show to 33777.
Welcome to the Eric Erickson Show podcast, Hour 2.
Occasionally, I got to put the story I want to talk about first, later in the show because of news. My goodness, holy moly, have I got a story for you guys. But first, hang on, the president is just now speaking in the Oval Office, and I want to go jump over here and listen.
Money wisely on making it really beautiful. It's going to be beautiful again. It's like Washington, D.C. We had, by the way, in Washington, D.C., we have the lowest crime numbers they've had in years. Zero, it sounds like it's a horrible thing to say, but I must say it. 0 murders in the last week since we've done this. That's the first time in memory that that's happened, if you can believe it. How pathetic that is to have to even say it. And I'm tired of listening to these people say how safe it was before we got here. It was unsafe. It was horrible. And Mayor Bowser better act straight or she won't be mayor very long because we'll take it over with the federal government, run it like it's supposed to be run. The numbers were horrible. It was crime-infested, rat hole, and they do a lot of getting rid of.
All right, the feed's nice, but this was a announcement about the World Cup, and World Cup, a big deal that Trump wants us to know. Now I can get to this story. I got up this morning, and multiple people sent me a link and said, "Did you see this? Did you see this?" It's like, so no, what? No. Well, Third Way is a Democrat group. They want to win. Third Way wants to win. And they released a memo this morning. Politico got the first copy of it. They got access to it, and it has just exploded online. Third Way has this memo to all who wish to stop Donald Trump and MAGA from Third Way. For a party that spends billions of dollars trying to find the perfect language to connect to voters, Democrats and their allies use an awful lot of words and phrases no ordinary person would ever dream of saying. The intent of this language is to include, broaden, empathize, accept, and embrace. The effect of this language is to sound like the extreme divisive, elitist, and obfuscatory enforcers of wokeness. To please the few, we've alienated the many, especially on cultural issues, where our language sounds superior, haughty, and arrogant. In reality, most Democrats do not run or govern on wildly out-of-touch social positions, but voters would be excused to believe we do because of the words that come out of our mouths. Words which sound like we are hiding behind unfamiliar phrases to mask extreme intent. It's not a matter of sounding like that's actually what they're doing. Nonetheless, why the tortured language? After all, many Democrats are aware that the words and phrases we use can be profoundly alienating, but they use it because plain, authentic language that voters understand often rebounds badly among many activists and advocacy organizations. These activists and advocates may take on noble causes, but in doing so, they often demand compliance with their preferred message. That is how birthing person became a stand-in for mother or mom. And if we don't think more carefully about our language, many in America will be banking on help from Donald Trump and Republicans because Democratic levers of power will be few and far between. So they said we're not out to police language, but phrases, ban phrases or create our own form of censorship. We've published papers using these words too. But the public-facing Democrats need to change. So essentially what they're saying is don't change your beliefs, but stop using the words that express your beliefs. Here's the problem. It makes the Democrats even more dishonest. At least they're honest about how insane their positions are. What Third Way is actually asking Democrats to do is to cover up their positions. Let me just go through the list. Therapy speak. These words say, I'm more empathetic than you, and you are callous. Privilege, violence, such as environmental violence, dialoguing, othering, triggering, microaggression, invalidation, progressive stack, centering, safe space, holding space, body shaming. Be aware of words proliferating in elite circles that have closed off open conversation and have made it uncomfortable for many people to engage in hard topics. Seminar room language. The language says, I'm smarter and more concerned about important issues than you. Your kitchen table concerns are small. Subverting norms, systems of oppression, critical theory, cultural appropriation, postmodernism, Overton window, heuristic, existential threat to climate, planet, democracy, the economy. When we use words people don't understand, studies show that part of their brain that signals distrust becomes more active, undermining our ability to reach them. Organizer jargon. These words say we're beholden to groups, not individuals. People have no agency. Radical transparency, small d democracy, barriers to participation, stakeholders, the unhoused, food insecurity, housing insecurity, person who immigrated. Democrats can fight for the poor, the hungry, the homeless, and immigrants more effectively if they speak in everyday language and in the language of the most affected by these issues. Gender orientation correctness. These say your views on traditional gender and gender roles are at best quaint. Birthing person, inseminated person, pregnant people, chest feeding, cisgender, dead naming, heteronormative, patriarchy, LGBTQIA+. Standing up to MAGA's cruel attacks on gay and transgender people requires creating empathy and building a broad coalition, not confusing or shaming people. The shifting language of racial constructs. These are the ones to stop using. Latinx, BIPOC, allyship, intersectionality, minoritized communities. The words that explain away crime, justice involved, carceration, incarcerated people, involuntary confinement. Now, I'm going to editorialize here to my team for a moment. Those on my team who are listening, I want you to push this particular segment when I'm done with this monologuing to you out there. Third Way has released a memo telling Democrats to stop using phrases like food insecurity, the unhoused, birthing person, cisgender, dead naming, postmodernism, safe space, dialoguing, microaggression, and privilege. They don't want Democrats to do this. They think it is alienating to people, and it is. However, the Associated Press style book has embraced this level of progressivism. It is now something that news reports do. Axios, the Politico, CNN, and elsewhere, they use pregnant person. They use unhoused in the Associated Press now. They don't use homeless anymore. They use unhoused. I want to see how quickly the AP style book and the press go back to the normal words, because it will show us just how much collusion there is between the left and the press by how quickly the AP style book changes back from unhoused to homeless, from mom to birthing person. How quickly it is that CNN and the New York Times stop using the phrase cisgendered, because they moved there because that's where the left went. And now Third Way, which is a progressive group actually, is saying you got to stop using these words. You've got to stop using these words because it's alienating to people. How quickly does the Associated Press, the New York Times, CNN, and other major media outlets stop using the words? We're about to see in real time how quickly the collusion goes on in the press, in the media, and the Democratic Party. Because they all started using these words because progressives told them start using these words. And the Associated Press changed their style book to accommodate the phrasing of the left as they were trying to shift narratives in this country. And dare I say, the Overton window, which they're now not allowed to talk about. I want to see how quickly the press corps conforms and complies with this memo. I'm also interested in the progressive backlash because particularly the trans movement has pushed the phrases like dead naming and heteronormative and patriarchy and cisgender and pregnant people and birthing person and chest feeding. So essentially, Third Way wants us to stop talking about the trans community, wants them not to exist in vocabulary. You cannot talk about a girl as a boy. It's a trans boy. It's a trans man. If you start talking about boys as girls, you're going to come across as crazy as well. So how do you do it without alienating people? That's the problem here. The problem is not the words. The problem is the positions. And Democrats always take the view that it is their messaging. It's never the message. It's never the messenger. It's never the policy. It's just how they talk about it. Latinx is a good example. No one in the Latino community uses Latinx. It's not even a word choice in Spanish that uses masculine and feminine nouns. There's no transgender nouns in Spanish or French. BIPOC, Latinx, these are things that Democrats have just embraced, not just progressives. The good white progressives, the ones who hold up the signs about how blacks can't drink from water fountains if the trans kids can't go to the bathroom, those are the ones who use these words. What Third Way wants is for the forward-facing leadership of the Democratic Party and the media to stop using words that signal to Americans these people are nuts. They want you to sound normal, but it's the positions, and that's the thing that these people forget. It's the positions. Parents don't want boys in girls' bathrooms or girls in boys' bathrooms. Third Way isn't telling Democrats to give up that issue. They're just telling them to talk about it in a different way. People don't want crime in their community. Third Way is just telling Democrats, change the subject. People don't want a flood of illegal immigrants. Third Way's not saying that, just saying don't call them by certain terms. Can you call them an illegal alien? Because that's what most Americans do. They call them illegal aliens. The AP style book changed it to undocumented. Undocumented. No, we know who they are. They were documented when they come across the border. Notice Third Way's not telling Democrats to stop talking to them, to stop talking about undocumented people. Instead, they're saying give up Latinx and people who immigrated. There's nothing actually wrong with people who immigrated. They are people who immigrated to the United States, but are they illegal or legal immigrants? They don't want to talk about that one. It's funny, the word choices they want you to stop using are the ones that they never even mention. But what's more funny to me is how the Associated Press style book and media outlets so quickly picked up on the phraseology of the progressive left. And now here comes Third Way with lots of data to say, hey, this language is alienating to Americans. Stop using it. To the extent that the press rushes to stop using these phrases is the extent to which the press and progressives collaborate together to advance a progressive narrative. If you suddenly start hearing the media go back to talking about homeless people instead of the unhoused, you know they're cooperating with a progressive entity designed to get Democrats elected. They haven't just suddenly changed the style book. And if the AP style book comes out next week and changes everything back to the way it was before, well, you know how collaborative the Democrats and the media are. And it won't surprise any of us. We assume it's that level of collaboration. But the fact that this entity on the left has had to come out and say, hey, guys, stop talking crazy stuff. All the crazy stuff of which was incorporated into the AP style book. When it comes out of the AP style book, you see then and there, it's just another data point and real evidence of the collusion and collaboration between Democrats and progressives to use language to persuade Americans to vote Democrat.
Life is unpredictable, but preparing for the unexpected shouldn't be. Take ownership of your life planning with Policy Genius to help your loved ones have a financial safety net in case something happens to you. They offer life insurance policies starting at just $276 a year for $1 million in coverage. Don't wait for life to make other plans. Protect your family today. Head to PolicyGenius.com. That's PolicyGenius.com.
Welcome back. Let's go to the phones this Open Line Friday, 877-973-7425. Spencer, you're going to be up next. Welcome to the show. How are you, Spencer?
Good, Eric. How you doing?
Great.
Yeah, it's nice to talk to you again. So I'm sure by now you've heard about the Cracker Barrel predicament.
Yes.
I wanted to ask you about that because I've heard it talked about on a lot of mainstream news, and I was listening to it the other day. An entire panel on Fox was talking about it, and everybody seems to have this more lighthearted take on it, and they're laughing it off, saying, "Oh, it's just stupid. You know, they should just go back to it." But I think that this goes deeper. I don't think that it's a coincidence that they're erasing a logo that has what most people think is, you know, a white man on it, and emphasis on the man part, because we've, you know, had a lot of cancellation of male culture, everything male and masculine. So there, you know, I think that there was a push to get rid of that too. But I didn't know who the CEO was until they showed her the other day on TV doing an interview, and it kind of made sense because she looks like a lot of these left-leaning CEOs and presidents with, you know, the
she apparently is. It will brought in from the outside to be in there, and yeah, I mean it's. I mean, talk about branding. They literally got rid of the cracker and his barrel on the logo.
Well, yeah, and my question to you is, you know, how far do you think that this will go, and do you think that this is, like I believe, like kind of a strike against, or one more strike against anything that's American culture and anything that people would say is, you know, something good about America? Because I don't think that it'll end with just this. I would be a bit surprised.
Okay, that it's a good question. So see, here's my candid thinking. A lot of the people who are complaining the loudest are people who said, I used to go to Cracker Barrel when I was a kid. This is bad. They don't go anymore. Cracker Barrel is losing it's losing foot traffic. It's trying to do something. I think that the redesign is dumb. It doesn't look good. I think the redesign in the stores doesn't look good, but Cracker Barrel's number one problem is the food. And this is a distraction for that. You've got the Democratic Party. The actual DNC's social media account came out last night and said, we don't like it either. It's like Unified America not liking it. I think the problems with Cracker Barrel, though, were bigger than a redesign. The food's no longer good. Now, I got to tell you about Americans for Prosperity. AFP I'm on their board of advisors for their activists, and I can tell you they really put points on the board. And right now, they want to put points on the board for our birthday coming up next year. This country will be 250 years old, and they want to do a 250,000 Steps for Freedom challenge where they want 250,000 people to take a step for freedom in their community. You can find out more about what they have in mind by going to afpvolunteer.com. Sign up with AFP. If you and I and everybody everyone else takes one step for freedom in this country, we move the whole country towards greater freedom. And that's a great idea for our 250th anniversary as a country. Go to afpvolunteer.com, afpvolunteer.com. Sign up with AFP. They also can turn you into a highly effective advocate and activist for conservative causes around the country. They are organized in every single state. Go to afpvolunteer.com today to sign up.
Everything from clothing to household items are getting more expensive each day. American Giant is about keeping things simple and close to home. They aren't affected by tariffs because their products never leave the U.S. Support American-made tariff-free clothing with American Giant with American Giant. Get 20% off your first order when you use promo code STAPLE20 at american-giant.com. That's 20% off when you use code STAPLE20 at american-giant.com.
Welcome. It's Eric Erickson here. It is an open line Friday, 877-973-7425. Should you wish to be on the program, I'd be happy to have you. I want to circle back because let me explain to you the way I work, the way this show works just real quickly is when it's breaking news, I try to hit it when it happens, and then I move on. And oftentimes people come in, they're like, why haven't you talked about X, Y, and Z? It's because, well, I talked about it the other day, like, for example, Cracker Barrel. And a number of people say, are you going to talk about Cracker Barrel? I did an entire segment on Cracker Barrel yesterday. But the John Bolton raid in Maryland is fresh. And a couple people weren't here at the top of the first hour, and they asked, what's your take? And I want to circle back to that real quick and be a little more expansive because I was trying to get it out of the gate as it happened and move on to other stuff. But let me talk about narratives to explain to you why I'm waiting. And I will tell you I'm split between maybe there's a there, and this looks like a political intimidation tactic on a critic. First, you should know I know a number of people who work for Donald Trump in his first term who do not work for him now, who have become critics of his because of his first term. And to a person, they don't want to say anything now because they don't want to be attacked. They don't want the harassment. And they do believe that they will be bullied. Some of us, myself, I just don't care. I'm going to tell you what I think. But people who work for him, there is a concern. Here's my thinking, though, and it all goes to narratives. Donald Trump is not an agent of the Russians. He's not a lackey for Vladimir Putin. He was not elected because of the Russians. These are myths the Democrats told themselves, and because members of the media are Democrats, they've taken on a life within the media with credibility in a way that the stolen election claims have not. If a Democrat were to have claimed that the 2020 election were stolen, most of the anchors and reporters at CNN and MSNBC and at the New York Times, they would believe it and they would talk about it that way. And I know this because of how they talk about 2016 and the Russians. The Mueller report and others have made very clear that the Russians were trying to divide Americans, not get Donald Trump elected. And yet it remains mythology among members of the press, not just Democrats, that the Russians stole the election for Donald Trump. Republicans for a very long time speculated that actually this was a plant by Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton, and it was the intelligence community, and they collaborated, and on and on and on and on. You know the story. If Democrats thought the 2020 election or the 2024 election were stolen, every major media outlet in the country would treat it as stolen because members of the media are members of the Democratic Party. They work hand in glove together. I talked about a half hour ago the Democratic group Third Way coming out with a lot of words that Democrats should stop saying publicly, even if they believe them or use them privately, stop saying them publicly. It is remarkable how quickly the Associated Press style book rapidly moved to add cisgendered, birthing person, unhoused, incarcerated person, things like that, undocumented immigrant, because those are the phrases the Democrats used, and the Associated Press style book conformed to the language of the Democratic Party. So along comes Tulsi Gabbard. And by the way, as I have said many times, I think when most people say something's a distraction from Jeffrey Epstein, the person's stupid. I actually think Tulsi Gabbard trotting out the Russian intelligence stuff and the collaboration of the Democrats was to change the subject on Jeffrey Epstein. It was the first thing done after the Jeffrey Epstein story kind of exploded in the faces of the Trump administration, with the FBI saying there's no there, and Jeffrey Epstein actually did kill himself, and the base starts turning on the president and getting very irritated. Members of Congress suddenly want the Epstein stuff, and lo and behold, here comes Tulsi Gabbard and says, hey, wait, look at this. We found out that Barack Obama guided the intelligence community, and to say that the Russians stole the election, and holy cow, let's change the channel, let's change the subject, and let's change what we're paying attention to. I've spent some time on it, and to be sure, yeah, there was clearly an effort by people within the Obama administration to seed the narrative to the press that Donald Trump was a Russian plant. Donald Trump was a Manchurian candidate, if you will. Donald Trump, the Russians were invested in getting Trump elected. The data actually shows that's not true. The data actually shows that the Russians actually just wanted Americans deeply divided. Here's why I've treated it a little bit with kid gloves, though. The way that Tulsi Gabbard has told the story, and by the way, I agree the story is true that members of the Obama administration did collude with members of the press and Hillary Clinton's campaign to sow and seed the story that Trump was a Russian hack, or a Russian plan, a Russian agent, or whatever. But the way that Tulsi Gabbard sold the story and has been selling the story is just too perfect. It confirms every prior belief, exactly as every prior belief was shaped. It fits too neatly into the puzzle. Every hypothesis presumed by Trump supporters turns out to be exactly true, exactly the way they claimed it was, with the way Tulsi Gabbard is releasing this stuff. Now, I'm not old, but I'm definitely middle-aged now, having hit 50. And in my 50 years, anytime a story lines up too perfectly, it's not true. Anytime my priors are confirmed perfectly, I'm being sold a narrative, not reality. You all know this is true. I may be articulating it in a way that you're not used to, but you all know it's true, that the story can be true, that yes, members of the Obama administration decided to work with the Hillary Clinton campaign and members of the press to tell people that Donald Trump was a Russian plant. I believe that's true. But the way that they're telling the story, sharing the story, and trotting out the evidence of the story is being trotted out and designed to check every box of every person who suspected as much, and every theory they came up with is being proven true. Every way they said it was going to work it's too perfect. And life doesn't work that way. It is, and now listen, I'm making a nuanced point that those of you in Rio Linda are going to have trouble understanding here. My point is this: a story can be true, but also when it checks every box and lines up perfectly as all your prior assumptions assumed it would, then you're probably actually being told a story along with the truth. So now let's do John Bolton. The Democrats have told us Donald Trump is an authoritarian. Donald Trump was going to wield the government against his opponents. Donald Trump was trying to make people fearful. Donald Trump was going to use the government to go after and arrest people. He was going to throw people in jail who criticized him. Along comes an FBI raid on John Bolton's home this morning, and it's just too perfect. It's so perfect and conforms so perfectly to the media narrative, like they're not even considering maybe John Bolton actually did something wrong. And I'm sorry, in the same way that I'm willing to acknowledge that, yeah, the Democrats actually sold the media on the Russia story, but what Tulsi Gabbard is telling us just seems to be too perfectly shaped of a story to actually be what actually happened. The same thing here. I'm willing to believe that, yes, the FBI agents went after John Bolton because he's a critic of the president, but also there might be more to it than that, and we should wait and see because the story's just too perfect. It lines up too perfectly with the left's prior beliefs. It lines up too perfectly with the MSNBC narrative. It lines up too perfectly with what the editorialists at the New York Times believe about Donald Trump. And when that happens, that's never the way life works. These stories never line up exactly the way that you and your prior presuppositions believe. And yet this story is, if you believe that this is a raid on a Trump critic designed to silence him. Because here's the other point. In my experience, on the left and on the right, there are people who start riding high in the saddle within a movement. And they're the go-to person. They're the talking head. And at some point, they think they can get away with stuff they otherwise couldn't. And they start doing things they should not do. Dinesh D'Souza is a perfect example on the right. His profile was profound. He got out there. He violated campaign finance laws. He ran that Mule documentary, and he got sued for libel for it, and the publisher had to walk stuff back. But he was a hero of the right, and when the Obama administration came for him, the people on the right circled the wagons around D'Souza and said, this cannot be so. This is a political witch hunt. And actually, there was a there. This happens on both sides. All I'm saying is when what your preconceived ideas suddenly fit everything perfectly, there's probably more to the story. And on the right, it's the Russiagate stuff that everybody's priors are being perfectly fit into the story, which tells me that they've actually shaped a narrative around facts and truth, but they're selling more than is there. Even if they're selling the truth, they're telling it in a way that is not necessarily the complete truth. In the same way with the Democrats, when you're telling me that this is a raid on John Bolton because Donald Trump's an authoritarian and he silences his critics and he's using the government to come after him, that's just too convenient. It's just too convenient for me to believe that the way you're telling me the story is true, and there might be a there because in my experience in the conservative movement and as an observer of politics, there constantly are people who ride real high in the saddle in the conservative movement and in the progressive movement, and it turns out behind the scenes they actually have done things they should not have done. And the fact that the FBI was able to get a judge in Maryland, not friendly Trump territory, to authorize them going to John Bolton's home and office to seize documents suggests to me there could be a there. And I know, and I see people who email me and say, you know, I mean, you tell me the man, I'll tell you the criminal charges. The anything for my friends, the law for my enemies. We give them enough time and evidence, they can indict a ham sandwich. I understand all of that. But I also understand those are the little stories you tell yourselves to build the narrative of how you navigate the world. And when everything conforms to those little stories just perfectly, you're tending to be deluded and you're not actually seeing the true story, because life is a little messier than conforming perfectly to all of your little puzzle pieces fitting together. So I'm going to wait and see. And also, I believe in the justice system of the United States of America, and I think the justice system is the last mature operating function in the federal government. And if they do try to prosecute John Bolton over this sort of stuff, and I do believe before a jury of his peers and an appellate process, though he should not have to go through it if it's a witch hunt, he would have to go through it, and he would be vindicated on the other side and probably be able to file lots of lawsuits for all sorts of things against the people who have prosecuted him if it was a political witch hunt. I'm just going to wait and see, because when either side starts telling me stories and all the puzzle pieces line up absolutely perfectly the way they told me the story, that tends to me to be a story and not the truth. And The left's narrative, they're trying to confirm it real hard with John Bolton today on everything nasty thing they've said about Donald Trump. And life just never works that way so that your narrative and reality fit perfectly together on either side of the aisle. It just doesn't work that way, which leads me to believe there might actually be some there, and I just want to wait and see before jumping on one bandwagon or the other. Let's let the facts play out. As I said on social media and trying to explain this, I know everybody wants a hard take, you've got to take a stand, you got to condemn the president or you got to condemn John Bolton. I want more facts, and I'm not willing to do that in a serious situation like this. And you can disagree with me, and you can be disappointed one way or the other. I'm just telling you what I think and the way I see the world, and feel free to disagree. You're allowed to in this country. But I want you to know where I am right now on this. Now, I also want you to go to EdenPureDeals.com and put in the discount code ERIC3, ERICK3, and you can get 3 Eden Pure Thunderstorms. They are air purifiers, so they get rid of dust, pollen, pet dander floating in the air. They get rid of 99.9% of bacteria and viruses that flow through the machine with the generation of plasma. They also produce ozone that floats out into the air and eliminates all the odors. So if you're in a rental car, someone smoked in, you're in a hotel room and it stinks, your basement is musty, or you fried shrimp in the kitchen, you can fire up the Eden Pure Thunderstorm and it's going to wipe out the odors. You get 3 of them for less than $200. You save $200 at EdenPureDeals.com. The discount code is ERIC3, ERICK, the number 3 after it, no space, EdenPureDeals.com. ERIC3 is the discount code. You can fire it up with a USB cord. You can fire it up by plugging it into the wall. It will wipe out odors. You get 3 of them. You save $200, and they really do just work. EdenPureDeals.com, discount code ERIC3. Hello and welcome. It is Eric Erickson here across the United States of America. The phone number is 877-973-7425. It is an open line Friday. Gavin Newsom claims they got the votes to move forward and get the voters of California to redistrict.
That's what this is about. We're responding what occurred in Texas. We're neutralizing what occurred, and we're giving the American people a fair chance. Because when all things are equal, and we're all playing by the same set of rules, there's no question that the Republican Party will be the minority party in the House of Representatives next year. We'll be transitioning, and I'll close, from this process that has unfolded over the course of the last few weeks to the campaign after I sign these 2 pieces of legislation establishing a special session.
You know, he says that, and the data just doesn't back it up. Mike Gonzalez at the Heritage Foundation pointed this out. In Massachusetts, Republicans get 36% of the vote. They have 0 seats in Congress. In Connecticut, 42% of the vote, 0 seats in Congress. 46% in Maine and 0 seats. 46% in New Mexico and 0 seats. 48% in New Hampshire and 0 seats. 42% in Rhode Island and 0 seats. 32% in Vermont and 0 seats. 38% in Hawaii and 0 seats. 42% in Delaware and 0 seats. The Republicans, just take New Mexico. 46% of the vote goes to Republicans. They have 0 seats in Congress. Democrats have structured and gerrymandered in such a way in these states to deny Republican seats. And also, given the number, it's real clear that Republicans actually have more leeway in Republican states to gerrymander. The Democrats in California are actually playing with fire here. They do this, you are going to see Missouri, Indiana, Ohio, and other Republican states redraw their lines, and there are far more ways for Republicans to draw lines to shut out Democrats than there are for Democrats to shut out Republicans, because the Democrats have already been so aggressive in gerrymandering. The Republicans are looking for this fight. I haven't seen Republican political operatives as excited about a political fight in a very long time, other than when they thought they were campaigning against Joe Biden. They are ready for this fight. They know they can win the fight. They know the data is on their side. And by the way, the law is on their side now, too. So Democrats, you want the fight? Welcome. You're going to lose this fight, because the numbers are not on your side since you've already so aggressively done this. When we come back, let's talk about hard times and good times and strong men and weak men and where we're headed as a nation. I got some thoughts for you.